Guys, I am really excited to be able to share some dear friends with you. Kelly and I met James and Leslie and Laura last year at the Biblical Families Retreat. James, you and I had met online
Yeah.
through BibFam initially.
Yeah.
And then were we already sort of in the Torah men's group at that point? Had we already started doing, were you already in that group?
No, I wasn't in that group. I think it was after the retreat is when we got into that group.
Gotcha. Okay. But so James and I communicate probably almost on a daily basis. We're part of a larger group of Torah men. We communicate a great deal or bump into each other often on the BibFam forum. Leslie and Laura and Kelly are all in a Telegram group together with some stuff. So the end result is we've got to know y'all fairly well and know a good bit about your story, but I want to hear from you firsthand. I'd love to hear y'all's story, different pieces, parts. Tell us a little bit about how in the world the Father brought you to this place. Would love to hear which came first, Torah or an understanding of marriage, or I mean, a proper understanding of marriage is Torah based, but I'm sure you'll give all that to us. But introduce yourselves and tell us all about yourselves.
Yeah, so I'm James. This is my lovely wife, Leslie, over here. We've been married for 12 years. And this is my lovely wife, Laura, who we've been married for 1 year. They are sisters, yes. Just a little bit about the story. About, I'd say 3 years back, I started to study marriage because I wanted to know the ins and outs. I was teaching in a local congregation. Every Thursday, I taught a Bible study class, and I taught maybe 2 Sundays out of the month as well, and led a few prayer meetings there. But I really wanted to be able to present what is marriage. And I went in with the mindset of, I need to really hammer out, that marriage is between one man and one woman. That way I can, present that, because that's what the indoctrination is in our society, coming from, Greco-Roman paganism, as we know. But going into it, it was, I wanted to be able to prove it. And as I started to get my, fingers wet, my feet dirty, I realized, I can't hold this point of view anymore. And I started to look and see and go, adultery hasn't changed definition, because I saw clearly one spot that David had 7 wives and yet commits adultery by taking another man's wife. But the Father had never spoken an evil word towards him for the first 7. And that was one of the passages for me that made me go, I need to really figure out what I believe and why I believe it.
Yeah, that's kind of a shock when you run into that the first time, huh?
Oh, yeah, it is. And, because we're told, well, it was just, man did this and man did that. And so as I started to go through it, I realized more and more that I can't defend monogamy only. And it came into like, well, maybe it's not preferred, but it's not sin. Like, I could definitely say it can't be sin because it doesn't say it anywhere. And what's interesting is we have a group of practicing Mormons who are up in a little community called Pinesdale around us. And they are polygamists. And I should, specify by saying polygynous, so that people would understand that they only practice one man with more than one wife. So it's not something we are shy to. We understand it. In fact, I grew up making fun of people like that in school. I would make, oh yeah, those guys with all those wives, yeah, look at them and this and that. And so I was on the other side making fun of them, and look at me now.
May you not reap too much of what you sowed.
Indeed. And as I was going through that, I started to bounce ideas off my fellow brethren that were around me. The people that I had been going to church with, the people I knew. I said, guys, we can't call this sin. And I got some good responses from a few men in the church, and they were pretty much like, yeah, we see we can't call it sin. There's no way we could. And if Abraham resurrected with his family, we'd welcome him right along and eat with him. And it's like, well, yeah, of course you would. I mean, why wouldn't you? But the sad part is that's just not the story for 99% of places that are called churches, is that the forefathers couldn't walk in there with their families. They'd be kicked out. And, I put that to the test, and I can tell you that 99% you won't be welcome in. Farther going into studying marriage, so I just continued to study and just kept asking the Father to open my eyes. And it wasn't just that he started to open my eyes to. It was the things like Christmas and Easter. And he really got a hold of me one time. I went to put a Christmas tree up and directly spoke to me and said, what are you doing? And well, I'm putting up my Christmas tree. Don't you know it's Christmas time? And no, he goes, no, you're not. Leave it in the box. So of course I left it in the box, and I went and told Leslie, because I said, I'm not supposed to put the Christmas tree up, and I need to learn a lot more about this. And so she said, okay, well, we're not going to put it up then because you said not to. And through study, I realized, the pagan roots and how much of it was, just not worshiping our Father, but worshiping somebody else. And so through that process, I was able to gain knowledge and understanding of the things that we're supposed to be holy as he is holy. We're supposed to only do things that he would do.
So that happened after you were already understanding marriage.
It was right about the same time. So it was when I went to study marriage, all this other stuff started to come up. And I think mainly because I was on my face seeking the truth. I wanted to know what the truth was, and I didn't care if it hurt. I didn't care what I had to let go of. I wanted to know what the truth was. And so, of course, in doing that, you start to see all the truth. When you ask for it, you receive it. And anybody who continues to knock and continue to seek, you find it. He promises that. And it was through that process I started to realize, okay, so we're doing marriage wrong. Leslie at the time was on birth control. That was another thing that was just pulled and tossed. It was, no, I want you to be fruitful and multiply, and I want to bless you. We see barrenness as even being a curse sometimes. So it was opened my eyes, and that's how we got Joshua. And he was, I linked Joshua as kind of a start and toward following the Father for me. Like, not just being raised in church doctrine, but actually being obedient. And his name says so because his name is Joshua Jacob. And what it means is it's basically the one who saves Jacob, and that's me. So it was, it's a reminder that it is indeed the Father who gave his son to save me, and he saved me out of paganism. He brought me out of that so that I could serve him. And Joshua will always be a reminder of that for me.
Amen. Amen.
So I kind of started.
Well, let me pause you right there, Leslie. What are you thinking as some of these changes are going on?
Well, like we had a very like open communication, when it came to everything that he was learning in the Word and was talking to other people about, and so I kind of got to just be a part of him understanding or coming to these understandings, through the whole process. And so, he had been talking to me about polygyny and, how he could call it a sin and things like that. And, at the time he was like, I don't want another wife. So, don't worry about it. And so, it was just kind of like a truth that I got used to, and we, being in the church for a while, we had kind of realized that most people don't really know what they're talking about. Even like the, pastor and the elders and stuff, like it didn't make sense, or we wouldn't want their relationships, like that they had in marriage and things like that. And so we just kind of had this understanding that, even though people are older than you, they don't always know what they're saying or what they're, they're not always right. And so that was kind of part of our like coming to these understandings, as well as like, well, even though other people are doing it, it doesn't seem to match up with the Bible. And that's what we care about. But as far as like the Christmas tree, that was a little bit harder for me, just like not wanting to do Christmas anymore, because I really enjoyed that as a kid. But it was kind of like, well, following God is more important than the things of this life that, we might enjoy. And so that's kind of where I was coming from when, they're like, okay, well, I guess we're not doing Christmas anymore. Things like that.
So we've got Christmas and marriage going on simultaneously. What came next?
I'd say what came next was it started to be the Sabbath day. And I was realizing, okay, I should be doing something here. And I was trying to put the pieces together, and it started with, well, I'm going to stop doing my work and just help other people. is how I started, because, well, I saw that it was lawful to do good on the Sabbath. I'm going to say this is good, so I'm going to go and help others do their work. And, I was praying for a way. I said, Father, I'm so busy because I was working 5 days a week. And then I was so involved in the church that I only had Saturday to get some things done. And I was praying and say, I need a way to observe your Sabbath day. And I was praying and asking and praying and asking. And, he made that way. It was a little different than I would have expected it. But that's a little bit later in the story. But eventually I did get the opportunity to where the Sabbath can be holy for my family, and I can teach them and show them, this is what it looks like to be in covenant with Yah. He says, this is a day of my covenant. If you're my people, then keep my day holy. So about, I don't know, we'll say 2 weeks after Luke writes that paper, the father comes to me and tells me that I'm supposed to take Laura to be my wife and to care for her. And, at the same time with everything changing, I'm, thinking like, wow, this is kind of crazy. And my thought is, okay, well, I'm an elder. I can't do that. And so that was what I stuck with. No, I'm an elder. I can't do that. But I still went and I talked to Leslie about it, and I brought it up. She had noticed that Laura and I were, I guess I need to back up a little bit, just a little bit. Right before that, Laura and I had always been friends. She's always been pretty quiet, though. And I had kind of taken her and helped her mature through her life and just been there to support her as necessary. Leslie was training her up to be a good wife, and I was hoping to find her a good husband, within even the local church we were at. And within the 2 weeks, that time period right there after that letter was written, it was just like different between Laura and I. She started to become more friendly and wanted to spend more time with me. And I just felt a deep care inside. And it was even to the point where I couldn't explain how it went, but we would go inside the store and I would get something that Laura liked and bring it back out to her. And it was just like autopilot. Like I wasn't even choosing to do that. And I was like, okay, here you go. And I was starting her car in the morning for her before she was going to work and things like that. And this was just autopilot. Like it was I never even made a conscious thought to do it. It just, this is the things you do. And I realized it was, yes, I was to take her as my wife and take care of her as her husband, as I already was taking care of her.
And this is one of the things that I think a lot of people don't understand about the way men are wired. Is men are wired with a desire to cover and protect and provide. It's a natural inborn thing, and it's very natural for a man when he sees a woman that needs to be protected and provided and covered. Very natural for a man to desire to do that. However, the monogamy only culture that we've been raised in force men to suppress that or to make a choice between. And that's not what you did. No. You didn't suppress it and you didn't make a choice between. So tell us how that unfolded. I want to hear everybody's perspective on how this unfolds. Kelly says she has a question.
So was Laura living with y'all at the time? Okay.
Yeah, she's been living with us for about 3 years.
3 or 4 years at that time.
Okay.
And so she pretty much had a bedroom downstairs, and then she would eat dinner with us and stuff like that.
Okay.
She was going to school, and then a private Christian school, and then ended up being homeschooled after that. That plays a little bit into it at the end too, of kind of how that story went and how he was leading her as well. And so we can definitely come back to that. But leading up to those events, what had happened is it was a Sunday, and we were at the pastor's house, and Laura apparently wasn't feeling good. And I had kind of sat on, there was a double chair, almost like a big, small love seat or a big recliner, and 2 people usually sat on it. And I sat there next to her, and she had kind of had her legs on my lap and wasn't feeling that good. And that wasn't uncommon. It was just, okay, well, you're not feeling good. That's fine. And I thought nothing of it. But she had got up, left, and then came back and just crawled right back in and got cozy again. And to me, I was like, okay, well, I'm glad that she's feeling better and that she can, be comforted, and never really thought past that point. But Leslie had noticed it. And I'm going to give a little background on some of the issues Leslie and I had early on in our marriage, and even through up to the last couple years of our marriage, is she was always a very jealous type. Part of the problem is that I usually always had women that I was friends with, and I find that I get along better with women than most men, just because I don't know, we click better. And even just being friends, I've always enjoyed being around women and their company. And there was, even through church and friends of hers and friends of mine, there was always women around, and sometimes our interactions would bother Leslie. And, being raised in that monogamy mindset, you're just, well, no, that's my husband. And, don't do that. And, you're sitting too close to my husband. You're not supposed to bring my husband something to drink, and just little things like that. And so we were able to always discuss that. And I never really hammered the issue, though. I always kind of backed off on it. I didn't step up and say, no, you're not to be that way. There's times where I said your behavior is not acceptable and it's not going to be that, but I never really went to the root of the issue and hammered it away. So being that, she was noticing that Laura was getting closer to me, and
also understanding polygyny.
Oh, and understanding polygyny as well. I was like,
well, how much can I really even say about this, but I did want to talk to him about it because it was bothering me.
So we talked that night, actually, that Sunday night. And she said, I understand that the husband's in charge, and I understand that polygyny is perfectly fine, but I want to talk to you about what's bothering me. And what she said was, it worries me that you and Laura are going to grow close together and become really good friends, and that I'm not going to be as close to you in that aspect. And I'm sorry, this was Monday night. I'm wrong on that. This was Monday night because something happened on Monday. And that was when the father told me to take Laura's wife, was that Monday. And so I already know that I've been tasked with taking Laura as wife to take care of her. Leslie doesn't know that yet, but she starts to give me her concerns that Monday night. And I basically back down and take the topic and push it to the side and act like it's not happening. And I was like, okay, I'm sorry you're concerned about that. And I was like, we can definitely look at that moving forward, and I'll try to, be careful of my behavior and things like that. And she just basically was, what'd you say after that? Do you remember? I think that pretty much concluded our conversation. Was I just told her, okay, well, that's not a big deal right now. And then I had
the next day.
The next day the father moved on me again and told me I have to talk to Leslie. So
on that afternoon, while James was at work, God told me that I had to be willing to be okay for James to take another wife. And I hadn't really pieced everything together yet. So I was just like, okay, and I didn't think of Laura necessarily. It was just like, well, I don't really know how to deal with that. Do I just have to be okay with it, or is it actually going to happen? And so then James gets home, and
yeah, she actually messaged me while I was at work and said, if God told you to do something, and not knowing he had told me anything, then you should do it. And, and so that was kind of interesting how he worked on me, and then he was working on her to work on me still. And so I get home and I just, eat dinner, and we sit down in the room, and I say, hey, Leslie, I got to talk to you. I said, look, God is leading me closer and drawing me closer to Laura. And, I believe he's led me to, want to take her as wife, or at least propose the idea to her, whether it's a yes or a no. I feel required to go ask her if she wants me to be her husband.
All right. So question, Laura, yes. Where are you in all of this at this point? Do you know anything that's going on, or is this something that's happening with you as well? Or tell us your piece here.
Yeah. So, I'd say the week before, Leslie came and talked to me, I think, and told me that polygyny was okay. And at first I was like, what? There's no way. And I was trying to think of verses that was completely against it.
So you really had not been involved in the polygyny conversation leading up to this, where James had been studying marriage. This is just a conversation that that Leslie and James are having.
Yes. Yeah. I knew Luke was writing a paper about how you would deal with a polygynous family. But that's kind of the extent that I kind of knew about it. So Leslie kind of showed me, okay, polygyny actually is okay. And so the first week I was kind of trying to think about that, and I was like, okay, well, God might be calling me to be a second wife, or be a first wife with like another wife added and stuff. So I was trying to think that over and digest that. And then into the second week, Leslie, I think told me something like she had to be okay with James taking another wife, something along those lines. And once I heard that, like I just like kind of knew that James was going to like ask me or something like that. Like I just like, it was an instant click. I knew what was going on. And like I kind of I guess going back to like the beginning of the 2 weeks, I noticed a change. Like on a Friday, I specifically saw a change in James and how he like acted towards me. And so then with that knowledge of like Leslie needing to be okay with James taking another wife, it like all made sense. And so then I was just like not sure at that point what was going on. I was like, okay, if that's what you want, God, I guess you'll figure it out. But yeah, so that was kind of where I was at.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Yeah.
So James, I'm going back to when y'all were at the pastor's house, and Laura was sitting next to you, kind of cuddled up, and because she wasn't feeling good. Did anybody else in the church family notice it and respond to you about that?
No.
They might have noticed it, but they didn't say anything.
Yeah, and so
it wasn't a you're my brother-in-law and I can do this because you're married to my sister type thing.
Yeah, no, not. It was like that for probably 3 years, and then it changed.
Something changed, yeah.
Right.
2 weeks there, yeah. And it was, you know, for me, I always just saw her as, again, this is my sister-in-law who I'm going to take care of. And then in that last, you know, kind of things were changing, and then Yah specifically comes and tells me, said, you know, this is what I want you to do, and everything kind of clicked back together. And I was like, okay.
We were all pretty close friends, you could say. So.
Yeah, so Laura would come like to all the prayer meetings with me, and every event we went to, she would come with me to the Bible studies. Because we had 2 Bible studies a week. We would go to 3 prayer meetings throughout the week as well, and then we'd have the worship team as well. Laura joined on with us. We kind of had 2 different bands that would do it for the church there. So I would head up one of them, and then somebody else would head up the other. But Laura joined us singing probably, I don't know, 3 months to 6 months before this ever happened as well. So it was basically, I mean, 5 days a week she was around us.
Right. Cool. Okay. All right. So Laura, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. And like my difference in behavior, I didn't even really realize or understand I was doing it either. So it was like both of us like had all of a sudden a difference in like how we were acting towards each other, but we didn't even like realize it.
Yeah, we can look back now and definitely tell the difference. And
I knew.
Yeah, Leslie could tell better.
So I guess Monday, Tuesday time frame. Then what's the next? Because I know, you know, from knowing your story that things progressed very quickly, but it wasn't like you didn't know Laura. You've known Laura for years, for as long as you've been married too, plus dating time with Leslie. So I mean, she's been family for
a long time.
12 years.
Yeah, 12
more than
12 years for
plus,
12 years plus the dating time for you, and then with Leslie, obviously they've been sisters for 20 plus years. So yeah, cool, very cool.
So the events unfolding, I sit down with Leslie and I tell her, I said, I want you to be okay with me talking to Laura about this. I said, I want to go talk to her and present this to her. And Leslie said, God told me I need to be okay with this. And, you know, I want you to go talk to her.
I think that was on Wednesday.
And that was a Wednesday night.
We kind of been just like discussing it ever since we kind of figured it out and on. So
yeah, it was
a lot of discussions and late night.
It was like go to work, come home and discuss for 6 hours, then go back to work, come home and discuss again for 6 hours. And that was kind of that week was just spent, you know, it was pretty clear what the scripture already taught. And a lot of the discussion was mainly, well, how does this work for us?
Kind of just proposed.
Yeah, so I sat down with her on the couch, just pretty much where we're sitting now, and told her, I said, I believe God has called me to be a husband to you if you would like that. I said, this isn't something that's required of you. This is something that is an offer to you. And I said, this is what it looks like to be one of my wives. I said, you will quit your job because you don't have to work. I'll take care of you. So you'll stay at home. And I said, if I'll take care of you, I'll make sure you have everything you need. I was like, you won't be of a lower status than Leslie or anything like that. You'll be a wife just like she is. And, you'll be part of my family and would be expected, to bear children. And, Laura always wanted to be a mom as well. So she was excited about that. And so I was able to just present that forward to her and say, if this is what you want, you can have it. And then I was clear to her. I said, but if you don't want that, you're still welcome in my house until you find a husband, and I'll still support you until you find a husband.
So I kind of heard all that, but I guess I didn't really give anything. I already knew about it, that he was going to ask me that and stuff. And so apparently I didn't give off any information. I was just okay.
Well then.
And I didn't give him any yes or no then. It ended up taking a few days after that. But yeah, at that point, that was the first time that I had seen a different side of James. He was super loving when he was talking to me about that, but beforehand, I always saw him as super serious, and I was always kind of scared of him. So that was really different, and yeah, it was just really nice to he was really kind, and so I really liked that. But yeah, so James said that I can take as long as I need to say yes or no. And so for the next 2 days, I was what is even happening? Is this actually what's going to happen in my life? And I was just really asking God, okay, is this actually what you want me to do? And trying to think over everything, trying to see is God pointing me in this direction. By the time it was I would say Saturday night, I already pretty much knew that I was going to say yes. Yeah. But I think it was ended up being Monday.
Yeah, I think it was Sunday night. I think you told me.
Oh, Sunday.
Yeah, we finished up going over to the pastor's house, and then Sunday night you sat down and told me.
Wait, was it Sunday? Because I thought. Oh no, that's right. You guys were engaged.
Yeah, Sunday.
So yeah, Sunday night I actually told him yes, I do want to marry you, and in for whatever happens.
Mm-hmm. Laura and I, she agrees that she wants to marry me. I tell her that night, I say, okay, well, this is, basically what's going to happen. I said, I'll take you to be my wife. And she said, yep, I'll be your wife. I'll serve you, and I'll do, all those things that, we've talked about. And so we had an agreement at that point in time. And so I considered us betrothed. Moving forward, we didn't tell anybody we were betrothed yet. And part of the reason why is I'm waiting for this meeting where we can sit down with the elders and talk about this polygyny paper. And I'm engaged to another woman at this point in time. And they have no idea. And so it's 1 week later, we finally get it on a Sunday. We meet for the polygyny paper. So we go to the pastor's house after church. We're all there. We eat lunch, all's good, and then we get ready to meet right before dinner time, and we sit down and we're meeting. And basically, we pull the paper up, we kind of look at it. My first response is, I don't disagree with anything that Luke wrote here. I think we need to treat them, as people who are welcome in our church. The other elder that was there, he was the pastor's son, and he said, yeah, I agree that we can't call it a sin. And then the pastor said, we just need to be really careful with this because we're going to offend a lot of people. But he goes, yeah, I don't see as it, we can't turn them away. And I said, okay, great. And then we started talking more about how I would be doing more as an elder and things like that, how he wanted me to take on a little more responsibility and stuff like that. And I kind of let him speak for about 2 or 3 minutes, and I stopped him. I said, before we get too far, I just want to bring this forward. I'm engaged to Laura now, and just straight out, I'm engaged to Laura. And I was, yeah, speaking of polygyny, right? And so I was able to tell him, yeah,
Bombshell.
and pretty much. And Leslie was right there. Leslie came over too after that, didn't you?
No, I don't think that he really wanted to talk to us at that point.
No, you went.
I was just cooking dinner.
You were cooking dinner right there. Okay, so yeah, basically they're like, okay, well, this is kind of sudden. When are you planning on getting married? And at that point in time, my date was about 3 weeks ahead of time. I was like, 3 or 4 weeks. We kind of picked out this date in April and things like that. And I was like, that's when I want to get married to her. And they're like, well, why so soon? I was like, well, why would I wait? It was like, if he's telling me to do something, I'm going to do it. And I told him specifically, God has led me to do this. And so they asked me to, just basically take some time, pray about it. I told them that night, because I was like, well, this night, this is what's going on. I left their house early. I went by my parents' house and told them I was taking Laura as wife. And then I met with her, with their parents that night as well, and told them as well. And so with my family,
break down these two different meetings that you had with the parents. No consummation has happened yet.
Nope.
But she's betrothed, and the three of y'all know this is going to happen,
yes.
But neither set of parents is aware of anything.
Correct.
Now, are both sets of parents in the same church that you've been in?
Yes.
Yeah, although his family is kind of off and on.
Yeah, my dad wasn't much of a church person.
Okay.
So he would come every once in a while. He would come to my Bible studies, but he wouldn't go to Sundays. So.
Gotcha. Okay. So how did the meetings with the respective parents go?
Okay, so we'll start with the easy one. That was my parents. So went in, sat down, told them, I said, hey guys, this is what the Father is leading me to do. I'm going to take Laura as another wife. First thing my dad says is he goes, welcome to the family, Laura. And just says, congratulations.
The first thing he said was,
yay, more grandchildren. That's what my dad said.
Very cool.
And so, he loves grandchildren. And so, yeah, he welcomed her to the family. Are you going to tell people that Laura's your wife? I was like, well, yeah, I'm not ashamed of it. This is something the Father's told me to do. Yes, I'm going to tell them. I'm not going to hide it. And that upset her quite a bit because of the social stigma. And so she seemed more upset about the social stigma than anything else.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think that's very common with a lot of people. There are a lot of, there are a lot of first wives. There are a lot of men who don't step up to what they're called to do because they're more concerned with what other people are going to think instead of walking in righteousness.
Absolutely.
And I think that's a major issue. That's a major problem. Because we have been inculcated with this monogamy only mindset that simply is not, it's not what Scripture puts together. And we don't even bother to stop and think about the ramifications of what that sort of a decision is, because essentially it exposes the heart and demonstrates that you're more concerned with what other people think than you are with what God's word says. Absolutely. Now, you and I did not talk about T-shirts today, but I want to stop for a minute. I have to make a quick Zazzle promotion here and tell a funny story too. Because when I first met and got to know James on this whole deal, one of the things that I know from my Bible study going way back is that there is no book of James in Scripture. His name wasn't James. What was his name?
Yaakov.
His name was Yaakov. It was Jacob. Yeah. So Jacob, the book of Jacob in the New Testament, and you can go look it up in Greek. The book of Jacob is, that's where it was renamed for King Jimmy. But no, I'm serious. That's what it was, or King James. Yeah. But as soon as I started hearing your story and I knew that, I put that together in my head. That was just hilarious. I really thought that was special. So I wasn't planning today, but I'm wearing my Jacob's SUV, his rear window, and James, you are halfway there. And James happens to be wearing a T-shirt that also came from my Zazzle store. That's Jacob's tent, and it's got a tent that I call an accurate historic representation of Jacob's family. But the truth is, and going back to the whole church thing here, Jacob would not be welcome in many, if not most churches today. If he walked into church with his 4 wives, if the progenitor of Israel would walk in, God calls him righteous. Hebrews chapter 11 says he's righteous.
Well, even homes.
And they would turn him away. Yeah, homes. I remember talking to a home fellowship one time, and I and they were trying to put me on the coals over my understanding of marriage. And I said, you mean to tell me if Jacob came to your door with his 4 wives and children, would he not be allowed in? They said, no, he would not be allowed in this home. I said, here's the thing. If Jacob's not welcome in your home, you're probably not welcome in the kingdom.
I agree. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, how are you going to go and feast with Abraham? That's what we're told in the parables is come and feast with Abraham in the kingdom. If you're not comfortable there, you'll probably be looking in.
That's not even that's not even a parable. Yeshua just straight up says, many will come in that day from the east and the west to eat with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, to recline with them at the table. He says, but you, talking to the Pharisees who had their own laws, their own traditions that superseded Torah, says you won't be there.
No.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Wow. So cool. Excellent. Okay. So, I guess at that point you were pretty much put out of the church. They gave you the left foot of fellowship.
There's a little more events that led up to that. And,
go ahead. We got time.
Because there was one aspect that, but I went to read a verse and I just literally was told, don't give me that crap. Didn't even give me the opportunity to read. And so I didn't read it. I just recited it. I said, look here, Leah gave her husband Jacob a wife and was rewarded with somebody named Issachar, named wages. And
that is Genesis chapter 30, verse 18. Right. Please tell me the rest of that story here.
Yeah, absolutely. So when Leslie was pregnant, this is how it's kind of always worked is I've asked the father, what do I name the child? Mm-hmm. And so he's given me the name for Ethan, for Kevin, for Joshua. And so he's actually given me a name for Laura's ahead of time as well. So I have that for later. But I asked, well, what is the name to be? And I already had a girl name, but I didn't have a boy name. And he said, you are to name him Issachar Abel. And I said, okay. And it didn't even click for me. Like, I kid you not, it didn't click until I realized, wait a minute. Issachar wages. And this is where it gets cool. That child was born on the 1-year anniversary of Laura and I's consummation of our marriage. So at the 1-year anniversary of our marriage is when Issachar, the wages, was given. And I will point out that it is because of Leslie that I have Laura as a wife. I would not have Laura as a wife without Leslie. She was a huge portion in that. And so we thank Yah for the wages that, he blessed us with because of that.
And so this is now you and Laura have 4
boys.
Yeah, with Leslie, 4 boys.
I'm sorry. Yes, Leslie, and may you have 4 boys with Laura. Okay,
absolutely.
So Laura also is expecting, but she's like still about 7 months out or 8 months out, something like that.
Yeah, I think she's almost 3 months along. We should be able to find out the sex eventually here shortly.
The big thing, you and I share this a whole bunch, is just really trying to encourage people to get on their face and seek truth and be willing to pay whatever price that there is for that. Amen. But the Father always blesses, and obviously we see great blessing here. This is praise Yah. And at the same time, I would put a shout out to Biblical Families and the forum that they have, because I know that's been beneficial for all of us at one point or another. And now where at one point you and I both came in there asking questions, and now we can help others who come in asking questions, and that's pretty exciting too. So as we all grow in the body, we get to help others as they also are learning truth, and that's exciting. Well, Kelly, give us a question. You got a couple written down over here.
I do. So basically, these are questions for Laura and Leslie. So how do y'all break up responsibilities? Because Leslie, you have all the children. And Laura, you're pregnant, but you have no children. And so how do y'all break up the responsibilities in the home?
Well, as far as like these past few months, Laura's been pretty much taking care of Joshua because I've been kind of down for the count with, you know, being 9 months pregnant and then delivery and everything like that. And so she's been really, really helpful there. But when it comes to doing stuff around the house, it's just kind of like we see that it needs to be done and one of us does it. And James will ask, you know, either one of us specifically to do something, or he'll just be like, you know, girls, this is what needs to be done this week or today, and we'll just figure out how to do it. So it's kind of just like whoever has time, because, you know, sometimes children take more time than you're planning. Sometimes they don't. And so it's just like, okay, well, I'm able to right now. So, you know, I'll do it.
Again, this is for Laura and Leslie. So growing up as siblings, did this make the transition easier versus some woman coming in off the street?
I would say yes, it definitely did. It was nice knowing that I could trust Leslie, especially since growing up, she was like the person that I looked up to. She was my mentor. And so it was very easy. And I was like, well, and now she'll just be able to continue teaching me like she's already been doing. And I would say it was actually a very like fluid transition. I already knew a whole bunch of stuff in the house and how it goes, how it runs. Yeah.
The convenient. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
For me, it was definitely much easier because, you know, another thing, like the same thing that she said is, you know, I trusted her. I knew she wasn't just going to like try to weasel her way into my spot or something and, you know, be the top dog or whatever. It was, you know, I loved her. I cared about her. She loved and cared about me. And so that was really nice. Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Would
I
it
guess
make the jealousy easier? I know that we as women, and you did mention earlier about the jealousy part. And so did it make it, was it easier because she was your sister?
for me, it was because I cared about her so much and I wanted her to have a good marriage.
Mm-hmm.
It kept me from just going to the place of I don't care about her or what she, you know, what she wants, what's good for her. I just care about me. Mm-hmm. And so it kept me from going to that place when it was a little bit harder at first to kind of adjust to everything.
Right. Right.
One of the things too, I think that plural marriage really exposes the hearts of the men and of the women. Of the men in terms of whether or not they're going to be leaders, whether or not they're going to be just in how they handle each person in the family, whether or not they are going to be very Messiah Christ-like in how they deal with everybody in the family. For women, I think one of the big things that this exposes is selfishness and jealousy or possessiveness, because it's very easy in a monogamy only deal for the woman not to ever have to worry about sharing or about really worrying about somebody else who has a need. You just kind of pat them on the head and go, yeah, we'll pray for you and maybe God can provide. Where once you have this understanding, you see somebody with a need. I heard one of the Straightway, it was an elder or one of their pastors who said that literally his wife, when she sees another sister with a need, says, that sister belongs in our family because I've got a really good man that can take care of her. And the elder literally has said, I've had to tell her, no, I will, we'll help pray. We'll help find her a husband, but you don't need to bring every woman home saying, here's another one. I got another one. Yeah. But the bottom line is this, I think, when we look at the book of James and it talks about if you see somebody who's cold or hungry and you don't feed them or give them clothing, you're I don't think it uses infidel there. What's
you're worse than an unbeliever.
Worse than an unbeliever. Okay, close enough. An infidel, right? And it just struck me that that's 2 of the 3 things that Exodus 21 verse 10 says that you're supposed to provide for a woman is clothing, raiment, and the conjugal rights. But the point being, if you're going to look at somebody and go, oh, I'm willing to share a coat, but I'm not willing to share anything that costs me more, that's a problem.
Absolutely.
Right? So it really exposes hearts for both men and women. And so fantastic. Good stuff. You got another one?
I've got one more, but I wanted to, both of y'all said one key word when you were talking about as far as you being siblings, and that's trust.
Mm.
That's a huge, huge word that you have to be able to trust the other person. And so for you both to say that's amazing. That's awesome. I love that. I love that. So, okay. Now,
question everybody always has to ask, sleeping arrangements. How do y'all typically handle that?
Yeah. So we have,
Very cool. Very cool. Excellent. Other questions?
I'm done. He answered one of them already.
So James, you have a YouTube channel, and at some point I think you're going to start putting some things up, or maybe I don't know.
Yeah. So what I have right now, it's Berean 1711. I'll give you a link to put in this. But what it has right now is 4 different teachers on polygyny. You're one of them. We also have Brian Kelson.
He's got a great series, doesn't he?
I have it on there. Yep. William Luck, and then Mike Allen. So 4 guys that it's just kind of like a resource pool is what I wanted to start as. But what we're going to end up doing is it's going to have some music and things like that shared, as well as discussion topics. And Luke and I are going to take some church doctrine topics and start going through them as far as things we wish we knew when we were in the church, things we wish were told to us that were readily available. And so it's going to really just be, how logical is your belief?
What other things? Now we've got the Biblical Families summer retreat coming up. Yep. I'll put a plug in for anybody that has stuck with us this long watching. James and I and Leslie, Laura, Kelly, we would all love to see whoever on the Biblical Families Forum. It's a great place to come get lots of good information. We would also, if you're active in the forum or connect through the forum, the opportunity is there to come to the periodic retreats that we have. There will be a late summer retreat. The dates, I think, have already been selected, and the location has been selected. I won't put those out here, but for anybody that's interested, they definitely need to. And y'all have a new acquisition for making the journey, huh? Last year, when they came, they drove 34 hours from the far corner of the country to come to where we were, with a short stop in the middle to pick up somebody that came with y'all. Boy, it was great seeing them, but they were all looking a little haggard when they got to the retreat. But that was a cool retreat, wasn't it?
It was.
How has Biblical Families helped y'all?
Yeah, Biblical Families was a great resource. Get in contact with a bunch of people. A lot of it was just, okay, I'm not the only guy that sees it like this.
You're not as crazy as everybody tells you are.
Exactly. There's just a few little things, it's like there was only a couple people who even had that mindset who would be willing to see the scripture. And you come out and see, okay, well, many of these other people have seen the way marriage works, and a good portion of them see the way that the word works. And so, that's been a good resource for all of us. It was good for Leslie and Laura to find other women to chat with, to talk with. So it's been great. The retreat was wonderful. I really appreciate going. That's not something I normally just do. I'm not that type of person that I just, okay, let's go across the country. But absolutely, the Father tells me to go somewhere, I go. And, some of the weird stops, by the way, again, we stopped and picked somebody up and went, and that was all ordained by the Father. Nothing that I would ever think of or dream of. or something. And he said, do it. And hey, we're going to do it.
Yeah.
And yeah, we have a better acquisition this time. And he's blessed us with a fixer up RV that I'm starting on. And, if he's willing, we'll be there in the RV this summer.
Fantastic. Ladies, anything y'all got?
I did want to mention something. For us, polygyny was a lot harder until we started following the Torah. And then, it just became so much easier, and God blessed us because we were obeying him. And so, I recommend to any family, if you're going to be polygynous, follow the Torah, because he has the right rules. You shouldn't be making up your own.
Amen.
Great point.
Yeah.
I really thank you for coming on, and I really, I am excited to have you as a brother, James, and I'm excited that we have opportunity to work together on so many different things. And you and I together have been having a little bit of an impact in Brazil. That's been kind of cool that some of the Brazilian guys that I was connected with have connected with you, I think, independently. And so there's a whole Brazilian group of guys that are learning and growing, and that's exciting to see you working with them as well. So that's cool. That's way cool.
Yeah, we've been kicking them around on divorce a little bit, so.
So, good stuff. Good stuff. All right, my brother, and ladies, to the Pease family, Yabed,
Thanks, Fernando. We appreciate you guys setting the time aside, and it's great to know you guys and have good family members.
Same here.
Fantastic. I'm going to end the recording right here.
Shalom.
So, shalom.
Shalom.
Did it stop? Has it stopped? Did it stop? I have to stop recording down here. So I guess I have to say for King and Kingdom. It's not going to stop unless I say for King and Kingdom.
King and Kingdom.
I bid you shalom.
Bid you shalom.
It's and I guess one other quick piece is your sons love the music, don't they? Or
yes, Joshua just dances.
Joshua does. He dances to it every time.